Hi everybody. I hope this is working right. I got a new video setup thing for Christmas and I'm trying it out. So it hooks to my phone instead of my computer, so this is a little different than what I'm used to. So hopefully the lighting is better than previous lives and maybe the audio is a little bit better nowadays. So welcome to Parenting Against the Grain. Each week I try to come on, sorry about that. Each week I try to come on and do a little bit of a live and talk about a topic that people might be interested in or that people have asked questions about. So since it's January, I threw out the idea of talking about preschool because I know a lot of people this time of year are looking into preschools, planning for next fall. This is generally when all that fun starts. So I thought we could talk about what to look for in a preschool and the importance of preschool, and if you have any questions, if you are watching live or if you're watching later, you can put those in the comments and I will try my best to respond to those. Okay, so just a quick little overview about preschool. First of all, why does preschool matter? Well, you've probably heard all the statistics about kids who go to preschool are more likely to graduate from high school, are more likely to get better grades, even things like stay married, less likely to get arrested. You hear these stats, we've had many years of studies on preschool, and many of these big large scale studies focus mostly on Head Start or preschool programs that are designed for kids who come from a more disadvantaged background. So they're kind of starting out many times with not as many advantages in life as other kids, so low income, poor neighborhood, things like that kind of put kids at a disadvantage. So preschool for that population is especially important because it really builds all these skills that they need before they start school. And going back to even, now it's been probably 50 years or more now that Head Start began. And really that's what Mr. Rogers was trying to do with Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and that's what PBS was trying to do when they started Sesame Street, was to help kids with that come from disadvantaged backgrounds to have an equal playing field when they start kindergarten. So all those statistics are accurate, right? All these things, preschool has all these wonderful outcomes for kids. But does that mean that everybody needs preschool? I mean, to my mind, not necessarily. If you can provide that type of enrichment and, modeling social skills and all that stuff at home with your kids, then I don't think all kids need preschool, and but it is nice. I mean, my kids went to preschool and it was more to help them get ready for kindergarten, but also so I got a little bit of a break to do things with, that I needed to do that were hard to do with kids, right? So it has a different uses for everyone. But the key thing I think to understand with preschool, from what all the research has shown us, is that the one thing that preschool doesn't really change in terms of kids' outcomes is their IQ. Putting your kid in preschool is not going to make them a genius overnight. That's not what it's designed for, and that is probably not even possible. So, trying to get your kid ahead academically, or, thinking that preschool is going to make this huge difference in terms of these other outcomes, more academic outcomes, is probably not going to happen. They've done studies that looked at kids who went to preschool, and basically they find that their IQ doesn't really change whether or not you go to preschool. It may increase slightly in the year following preschool, but then it goes back to its original level. So preschool is not about IQ. It's not really even completely about academics. It's really about social skills. And So that is really what all the research tells us, is that preschool, its main benefit is helping kids get the social and emotional skills that they need so that they can succeed and do well in kindergarten. And so I think that puts preschool in a different light for many of us. There is a certain level of academic preparation that happens in terms of, letter sounds and learning their ABCs and their colors. But at least in my experience, and maybe this has been yours too, most kids, that I run across, that I interacted with in preschool when my kids were in preschool, they already knew their letters, at least, maybe not all of them, but they had some of them. So preschool does focus on that. They already knew their colors for the most part. Many of them already knew their numbers. So it was more about helping them learn how to interact with their classmates, how to, take turns and follow rules and be in a more structured environment for part of the day so that they're ready to go to kindergarten later on. And also how to be away from mom or dad for hours at a time if they had not previously been in daycare. So there's that piece of it too. So the main thing, like I said, the main thing that preschool really is all about is social emotional skills. Things like self-control, persistence, self-discipline to a certain extent, and learning all those skills that will over time help them in all aspects of life. And so what the research points us to is, if social emotional skills are really what preschool is all about, then what is the best way for kids to learn these skills? And no big surprise, the answer is through play. There has been, at least in the past, sort of two camps about what preschool should be all about. And there's sort of this idea, some people have this idea that it should be, sort of the beginning of schooling and, academically rigorous, and they should be doing worksheets and, learning phonics and all this stuff. And then there's this camp that feels like it should be more about play. But really, in reality, I think what we see, at least what I have seen in preschools, is that most of them in real life are sort of a mix of both. There are a few preschools I've seen that are really focused on play and outdoors. Now we have nature preschools and things like that, which are great. But most sort of, I would say, typical preschools that you see, at least that I've seen, are sort of a mix of both. There's some focus on academics in terms of letters and, learning numbers and things like that. But then there's also a lot of play. And so learning how to incorporate those things together with a big emphasis on play is sometimes a tricky balance, I think, for preschools, but it can be done. There's also, I think, sometimes this stereotype that preschools that are more play-based are chaos. Like, you think, I'm going to go in there and the kids are just going to be running around crazy, not learning anything. And in reality, if you see that in a preschool, then that's usually not what you would want to see. Play-based preschool, if it's done well, does not look like chaos. And there's this great book, and I'm going to post a link to this article that talks about the book. It's called The Most Important Year, and it really gives really good examples about what play-based preschool should really look like. And so it's not just chaos, it's very kind of planned out, and the teachers who are trained in this kind of approach do a great job at asking the right questions to extend the play to make it more meaningful and help extend the kids' learning in really useful ways. So we kind of call this guided play. You can do this at home as well. I mean, it's not anything that is just specific to preschools. But so, for example, if a teacher that's very skilled in guided play might have a center set up in the preschool for, say, pretend play, maybe like a grocery store, let's say. You see that pretty commonly in preschools. And so the kids are playing grocery store. So some kids are the people that are checking out the products, and some kids are the shoppers, and they, go up and buy their items from their grocery store. and the other kids are helping them check out. Okay, so there's so much learning that can go on when you really think about this situation. So a really skilled teacher will know how to ask the right questions to make this really, they're learning a lot. So they might ask questions like, how many apples does Sally have? And the kid would have to count, and then you would say, well, if she, what other items does she have? How many items does she have altogether? And so you're doing a little bit of math, and then, they're identifying colors of the different items. What color are the apples or the bananas? And then they can even extend it further into thinking about, how you interact with your customer. If you're in that role, like, how do you greet them? And that's all teaching social emotional skills, right? So it's really, when you read a book or you see this in real life, when a really skilled teacher is doing this well, you can really see how this type of play can be so educational for kids, and they're so engaged in it, and it's very self-directed, and it's really cool to see, and then you really get a sense of how this happens in real life. So I recommend reading that book, and I have an article that kind of talks about some of the scenarios a little bit. But it's I think really important to understand that, in preschool, the main focus shouldn't be worksheets and really even learning to read that much. That will come later. If there might be occasionally a kid that, is ahead of the game and maybe learns how to read that soon. But for the most part, it's learning how to interact with your classmates and how to be a good friend, and all those things that we want kids to learn, so that when they do get to kindergarten, that they have a better sense of the social environment. So I did put together a few things that I wanted to talk about in terms of, like, if you're going to visit a preschool, what you might want to look for. These are definitely not, everything that you would want to look for. I do have a post with a download that has a more extensive list, and I will post that if you're interested in that. But a few things to consider if you're going to visit preschools. First off, the amount of toys and items that are open-ended. So are the toys things that you can do multiple things with? So, blocks are great for that. Things like scarves or stacking cups or anything like that kids can use in multiple ways. I think that's what we see from research are the things that really benefit kids, and the toys that they end up using the longest are open-ended toys. So there should be a fair amount of those types of things around in a preschool. And of course, very hands-on things. So puzzles, blocks, anything like that is very hands-on, where they're actually having to engage a lot with the item, and it's not just something that, like, you push a button and it does something for you. I would think there would be very limited electronics for the most part. So things like that, things they can really interact with, hands-on, Play-Doh, different types of sensory, objects, sensory bins, or anything like that helps them, really engage with the item that they're playing with. Those things are primarily what preschools should be, to my mind, should be including with their toys. The other thing to look for is some sort of evidence that there's time for pretend play. And so this could be like a center, different centers, or at least one center that's set up for pretend play, like a play kitchen, a play grocery store, play doctor's office. So anything like that you can tell the teachers are facilitating or encouraging pretend play, because pretend play is really crucial for helping kids really understand and gain social emotional skills, and to take on a character is really helpful for them to understand, eventually, once they kind of developmentally get there, the feelings of another person, the intentions of another person, and how to interact with their friends and play these different roles. And pretend play is the best for that. So some evidence that their pretend play is going on. In terms of, like, social emotional skills, if you happen to visit a preschool when the teachers are actually engaging with the students in like a normal day, things you might want to look for are, the teachers modeling positive social emotional skills. So are they kind of, using the wording and the phrasing that they would want the children to use with each other, in terms of, please and thank you. That's the basic stuff. But even beyond that, like if there's some sort of conflict, how do we resolve that conflict? If someone does something that you don't like, pushing or getting in your personal space, how do you ask for them to stop in a way that is polite? So the teachers should be modeling that, and also giving the kids opportunities to use those words and to model that kind of behavior between each other. And along with that, I think giving the kids chances to kind of correct their behavior. So if there is an incident where, a child doesn't ask nicely, or there's some sort of conflict between the kids, they should be given some chance to kind of redo, because that helps them learn how to use those social emotional skills in a more appropriate way, instead of, the consequence being straight to some sort of punishment. So it's like one strike and you're out and you have to go whatever, sit in the corner, whatever. To me, I think, in an ideal situation, the preschool should have opportunities for kids to, the teacher model what the appropriate behavior is, and then the student has the chance to kind of correct what they may have done wrong, or, didn't go so smoothly the first time. So I think that's helpful to look for all those types of things where the teachers are really modeling that behavior, and the teachers are really, engaged with the kids, and they seem like they're happy to be there, and that they really enjoy being around children. That seems like an obvious thing, but, you never know. And then in terms of sort of the play setting or the overall environment, I think it's really helpful for kids to have tons of opportunity for outdoor play. I know in preschool it can't happen all the time, but at least, you could ask what portion of the day do they get to go outside, assuming the weather's nice. And of course, what kinds of things are outside that they could, play with and utilize. Is there things that they can do more hands-on play outside? And then, like I said before, with the guided play, if you're visiting a preschool and you have the opportunity to see how the teachers interact with the students, I think it's helpful to, think about what questions the teachers are asking the students. Are they kind of engaging with their play and helping them learn things and ask questions and extend that play, or are they just back kind of supervising and not really engaging in the play with them? I think that is potentially a big difference between some preschools where, I think some teachers would probably interact more and help kind of extend that play, and some may not. And so that, I think, is something helpful to look for. So there's a lot to think about when you're looking at preschool, and not just these factors. There's so many things that go into choosing a preschool, and everyone has to balance what they feel like is the right choice for their student. The other thing to consider, which I bring up all the time, is your child's temperament, and this can come into effect in preschool too. If your child is more reserved or introverted, you might consider how they, if you can see them fitting in that particular environment. Is it, a large class? Is it loud? Is it overstimulating in any ways? That, are things to consider based on your child's temperament. If they're more active and extroverted and like a lot of social engagement with their peers, then that could be something to consider when you look at a preschool too. Sometimes the fit between a school and a child is just that. It's just a goodness of fit issue. It's not necessarily whether the school is good or bad or anything like that. It's just some schools might fit particular personalities better. And so if you have a child who's very extroverted and social, you might want a setting where they have more opportunity to play and interact with their peers, and not so much sitting in seats, working on worksheets, which, to my mind is not appropriate for preschool anyway. But That would be especially hard for a child who's very extroverted and socially aware and all that, because trying to keep them quiet and be still all day is not going to be a good fit for them, probably. So just some things to think about. A lot of factors go into it. That's all I have for this discussion about preschool. If you have questions, feel free and leave a comment. I'll be checking them later to see if anybody has questions, and I'll post the links to those articles that are related to this. If you are out searching for a preschool and you have questions or are looking for resources, let me know and I will try to help. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.